Hi, everybody. Welcome to our channel, our Scientology stories, Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher, and we've got a special recording here for you. And before we start, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host, Janis Gillham Grady. Hi, Janis. How are you?
G'day, Mark, everyone. It's a good day today. Every day is a good day. I'm enjoying life.
So why don't you tell everybody what we're doing with this recording or videos about?
Right. Since Mark and I have the specialty of hitting the subject of history of Scientology, today we have a very special guest, someone who I met in 1967 when I was 11 years old. He was the first Sea Org member I ever met. And
Wow.
my mother, he was going to St. Hill from the Sea Project, and my mother had asked him to look up her children and say hello for her and give us her love. And he went out of his way to make sure he did that. And that is my good friend, Neville Chamberlin. Hi, Nev.
Neville.
Good evening.
Hi. Go ahead, Janis. I was going to ask him, tell us a little bit about yourself. You know what I mean? How you got in Scientology and all that, just a brief history.
Well, I got into Scientology when I was 7 years old. My mother and her partner decided that I needed some, not gains to be made, but just behavior correction. So I was taken to an auditor called Joe Mowbray, who was a partner of Peter Green at the time in London. She was a part-time auditor, part-time midwife, and a part-time abortionist for the ladies of the org.
Okay.
just to put in, it was a very bohemian existence there for them all, you know.
Yes.
Anyway, so she was dressed in a turquoise blue dress, cocktail dress, in the afternoon, smoking a cigarette and sitting in a lounge chair, and I was sitting on a stool. And the first command I was given was, be 3 feet back of your head.
No.
And I said, why so close? So she slapped me. So I kicked her. And from then it went on to book and bottle for about 100 hours.
Oh, wow.
And then after that, I had about 200 hours of CCHs, opera by dupe. I mean, the book and bottle was fun because we were on the 3rd floor of an apartment block with a common courtyard at the back, and I would just throw the bottles of books out the window.
Now, Mark, do you want to explain what the book and bottle is?
Yeah, that's a Scientology process. It's called operating procedure by duplication, or opening procedure by duplication, and it's basically where you have the person that you're counseling to look at that wall what is it? You look at it, you walk over, you touch it, you pick it up. What's its temperature?
Yes.
And then you put it down. You turn around and you go to the opposite direction. You do it over and over and over and over again.
You could have asked me. I told you. I remember it distinctly.
Yeah, book at one end and bottle at the other, and you go back and forth between it.
And it goes on for hours.
The other process I had was the laughing process, R2-17 or something like that. You know, start laughing, continue laughing. Well, as a 7-year-old, laughing for 3 to 4 hours, it makes a citizen out of you. Let me tell you.
I just want to finish on that book and bottle. The end phenomena is basically you exteriorize from your body. Okay. In other words, you feel like you're outside your body. That's the end phenomenon. So you could go on for hours until you feel like that's the case.
Yes, it can.
Neville, let me ask you, how old were you when you got in Scientology?
Well, I was 7 at the time.
And where did you, I mean, what year was it?
1954.
Okay. And where was it?
In London. I was living in Harrow, and my mother lived in South Harrow there, and they were a part of a group that were involved. They used to go to Holland Park, where Hubbard had a flat, and he used to do Saturday lectures, and or play a tape lecture, and people would go along and sit there, and frankly, most of them fell asleep during the lecture, you know?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the first thing I ever said to Hubbard was, I looked at him and said, "You're fat." Which did not endear me to him, you know?
And that was when you were 7 years old?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's why you got the 100 hours of book and bottle.
Yes, for my sins, yes. But yes, I actually became a fifth columnist at that point. Do you know what the fifth column is?
No, what's that?
In the Spanish Civil War, the fifth column was a team of collaborators and infiltrators behind the enemy, stabbing him in the back.
Oh, okay.
So I was like the enemy within.
I see.
Okay.
So when papers and books and bulletins came through the front door, I'd rip them up.
Oh,
Went in
interesting.
the bin. That was it. And then there was the regrettable incident for Hubbard when he tried to force himself upon my mother.
And were you there?
I wasn't, but my grandfather was. And my grandfather, being an ex-army man himself, and he was 78 years old and 6'2", built like a ramrod. And my mother telling Hubbard to leave off and stop it. He walked in, grabbed Hubbard by the scruff of his jacket, frog marched him to the front door, opened the front door, smacked him in the face, and sent him sprawling on the floor. Hubbard got up crying and ran to his car and drove back to London. Now, about 4 days later, he turned up at the organisation in Fitzroy Street with a big purpling black eye, okay? And people like Ray Thacker, John DeMonte, Selwyn Lyons said, "Gosh, what happened?" And he said, "Well, I guess I was kind of forgot how small the room was, you know." And they're going, "Wow, Ron was exterior. Wow, you know." But Hubbard, of course, being a bully, was also a coward.
Mm-hmm.
That was a hallmark through his life. And of course, he was terrified that my mother would say anything about this to her partner, Joe Leach, because Joe was a dedicated Scientologist and he would have punched his lungs in.
Right.
And Hubbard, in appreciation, gave him a 2-seater car, a JBM Special, 2-seater hill car. Joe, I think you're a wonderful guy. I'd like you to have this car.
Oh, wow.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, it was a lovely car. I mean, I used to sit in it, in the garage. Couldn't drive, but I used to sit in it and push the buttons and try and start it,
Right.
So from age 7, then how did you, like, obviously you stayed in Scientology as a teenager and all that. So did you finish school and then become a staff member, or what?
Nothing so simple as that. No.
Okay.
I just, school to me was an object course,
Mm-hmm.
So obstacle course. So I just got on with life. I grew up in London. I grew around the West End, and we moved from Harrow down to into London, and just off the Tottenham Court Road, had a apartment there, big apartment with commissionaires at the door. My mother ran a processing centre there. She had been Hubbard's lead auditor in the organisation, and in fact, the day that my grandfather was home looking after me, and he had a heart attack and died. And my mother and Joe were at the Congress in London held in the Indian Centre opposite Fitzroy Street. And then a neighbour actually got them to phone up and say my grandfather had died, heart attack and died, and I was on my own there, with him.
Right.
And they wouldn't relay the message to me. They wanted to interrupt Hubbard speaking. So anyway,
Wow.
The message got through, and eventually they left. They were most upset they had to leave the meeting to come back to see me. All right.
Yeah.
I was, as one title of one thing was, I was like orphaned with children as a child. I had parents, but I didn't have parents. My grandfather basically brought me up.
Right.
And that's how I survived. I mean, I grew up in London in my teenage years. I lived in London. I spent every night out in the West End in Soho. I saw a slice of life that you would not believe. And that really educated me what was going on. You see some of the biggest villains in London walking around, and you treat them like normal human beings,
Yeah.
Speaking of normal human beings, I mean, as one thinks, how's Davy doing? Davy boy doing?
Oh,
David
David
Miscavige?
Miscavige?
Yeah, little Davy. How's he doing?
Well, all we know is that apparently he's He's afraid of the staff at Golden Era Studios and hasn't been up there for like 10 years. And but you remember him from St. Hill as a kid, don't you?
Yeah, well, yeah, he was a member, family of four. I mean,
That's okay. Just turn your light back on. You lost your light somehow.
as the word goes, everything went all black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you see me?
Yeah, we can see
you.
you.
Yeah, you're just in the shadow now.
I can't see you at all, but never mind.
Oh,
Can you
you've
see
lost
us?
your screen?
No, I'll just carry on anyway, you know.
All right.
So yes, he was brought up in an abusive family relationship. His father, Ron Senior, was a drunk and a wife beater.
Right.
Excuse me,
when you
Neville. You know,
study
if you
psychology-
click on your mouse, you'll
Pardon?
probably see us again. Remember, Janis, we had the same problem with Ken
Yeah.
Urquhart.
Click on
where
your
it-
mouse.
It times out and it knocks out your thing. See if that works.
Okay. Well, I mean, he was a tough little kid, you know. He was terrible asthma. He was short, but he stuck in there. He went on, did his internship there, and I used to help him get through that. And I've seen him leaning up against the wall, trying to get his breath back, holding a PC folder in his hands. But, you know, to his credit, he was determined to see himself through, you know. But his father, being a bully and a drunk, and used to smack his mother around, and she would come into St. Hill on a Sunday morning sometimes with a cut lip or a black eye. And one thing you learn in psychology is that abuse begets abuse. There was no control over the kids.
Right.
The only one of any substance there was the elder son, Ronnie Senior. He wasn't part of all that stuff going on. And the two girls and Davy were wild. And no one took any responsibility for them. And should we say that the girls particularly got up to some rather unsavory things, but which is not necessary to go into now. But, you know, from last I heard, that was the last time I saw him. And then I did a mission over to America. Well, when I say a mission, it was a SEAL mission came to St. Hill, one of these let's hit and hat, you know. And
Right.
I decided I've enough of this, so I organized a quick regging trip. I ended up to America, and I ended up in Hawaii as well, which is a nice way of doing it. And in Levittown, New Jersey, I stayed with the Miscavige family. And yeah, it was great. They were fine, and family group. And in fact, I had to end up sharing a bed with David that night, you know. But that was the last time I ever saw him.
Hey, Neville, let me ask you a question. How do you know, or how was it known that, you know, Ron was a wife beater? Where did that come from?
Well, you look at the evidence. You know, you see his wife, talk to his wife, Loretta. She'd come in and sit in the reg office and cry. She got a big fat lip or a shiner on her eye, you know?
Yeah.
You see, on a Saturday night, quite often, a group of guys would go to the Dorset Arms Hotel in East Grinstead, in the middle of town, and they'd have a party there. You know, music. They'd bring their musical instruments along. We'd sing. We'd have a lot of fun. Really good time, right? And then at 11 o'clock, they'd say, "Well, it's closing time now." So someone would say, "Well, I'll rent a room here." So we'd rented a room, and that allowed them as a hotel guest to have visitors staying on, which got round the law. So we could be there till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And the bar had to stay open for us. And of course, I was 18 at the time, I think, 19. But it was that's the background behind it. Ron Moss was one of the guys who was there in the band. He played, I think, trombone.
Yeah.
There was Miscavige. There was Ronnie Miscavige, and he playing a trumpet or something like that.
Yeah, he played trumpet.
James Hare, he played the guitar. It was a good little group of people there. It was fun, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
But what happened after that was him going home and expressing his displeasure at something with his wife, you know.
Yeah, well, Mark, also when Ron Miscavige Sr. was being interviewed by Megyn Kelly, Megan asked him, well, it says here that you always beat your wife. And he says, no, not always, maybe only once a month.
That's once a month too often.
Yeah, exactly. So he admitted it himself.
Yeah.
When you live in England, particularly in the north of England like I am, things are very, very simple, There's one golden rule: never hit a woman.
Exactly. Yeah. So now let's move on.
Ron Moss, I was going to say Ron Moss, the trombone player. He was a longtime Scientologist and also was a manager later for Chick Corea and returned forever for a long time. But he's the father of the actress Elizabeth Moss, who our viewers may know from The Handmaid's Tale and Mad Men and all that. And she was born into Scientology and still is a Scientologist to this day.
I'm afraid.
You want me to show a picture of Neville?
Yes.
I can't see it.
All right, here you go.
I can't see
Neville,
it.
did you try moving your mouse? Neville, did you try moving your mouse?
I didn't touch anything. It just
Yeah.
So if you try touching your
mouse
computer,
and see if that works.
No, I didn't. I didn't do anything. Let me just try it. Hang on. There you go.
There you go.
There, okay.
See, you got to move your mouse every once in a while, or it times out and it cuts off your screen.
Okay, well, I remember that now.
So we can see you now. We had the same thing happen with Ken Urquhart, so it's no problem.
Yeah. So this is a picture of Neville when this is what he looked like when I first met him around 67. And I think this picture's probably in 68, right, Nev?
That's about the time, yes.
Yeah.
And how old were you there? About 21?
Yep, 21. 2021.
Okay. And then I take it, did you end up here at St. Hill at some point?
Well, my mother was on the briefing course at St. Hill. She was there. And I used to go down there every weekend to see them. And I got to know the people on course, the staff there. I knew the manor intimately well. The buildings we really had were the pavilion and the chapel. That's all there was there.
Right.
And the chapel was where the briefing course was run. And people would sit at card tables, pairs of card tables along the room. And Nibs Hubbard would be a supervisor along with Herbie Parkhouse. And they would be trying to run the goals processing and each other and making long lists of like 30 and 40 pages of goals and whatever, and some of them got quite triggered, okay, to the point where I remember hearing about that Kevin Kember climbed on the table and jumped onto the rafters in the chapel and hung up there and wouldn't get down. They had to get a ladder in to try and get him down,
Now, you actually knew Nibs?
Oh, yes.
What was he
Do you
like?
have anything you can say about him?
Nibs is a good guy, actually. I mean, I think he objected to the way Hubbard treated him because Hubbard was trying to mold him in his image, and Nibs was his own person, and in the end, I think he just rebelled against it all.
Right.
Well, and I also learned Neville when I read Barefaced Messiah by Russell Miller. Hubbard completely ignored his responsibility for Nibs and his who was the daughter? Katie. Yeah, he didn't pay child support. He was off running around for years and didn't pay any attention to them.
Mind you, Katie came to St. Hill. I remember her at St. Hill on course. Did some courses there. Lovely lady. Everyone liked her. But I just always thought that Nibs was he was like a square peg in a round hole.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't fit in with the persona that Hubbard tried to portray.
Right.
Mind you, though, you should have seen some of those people on course. They were out there on the rim. They really were, they were really, really interesting people.
Well, I remember as a kid, and hearing stories like from Pam Piercy about going and visiting spaceships and, you'd hear all these
Let me tell you
different
about
things.
Pam Piercy, all right? Pamela Karan was her name. Her father was a member of the Magic Circle. And she and another girl were the twin singers for a group called the Caravels, who had a hit with, you can't be a baby to cry, They had a hit with that, all right? Now, the one thing about Pam Piercy is that if she said you go down the road and turn left, you turned right, because she had a confusion with reality. In fact, I remember when Clint Walker was came to London Org and had some processing, and I think she was processing him. Right now, Clint Walker, do you know the guy I mean?
No.
American actor, big guy, cowboy.
Oh, okay.
Who had big tassels hanging off his sleeves, rawhide type character, and he came out of Fitzroy Street one day, and he's about 6'5" tall, and broad shoulders and this tan jacket with tassels on it, and he had sunglasses on. Now, of course, I started walking along the way, and I said, "Hi, Clint." He says, "Oh, hello, Neville." He says, "Why are you wearing sunglasses?" And he said, "In case anyone recognizes me." Now, this is a guy you see walking to you cross the road,
Right.
But we had some sturdy people there, I mean, the staff in London Org they're a dedicated group of people. It was bohemian, it really was. I mean, it was Ray Thacker, God help us. She was the area secretary, Elizabeth Ray Thacker, right? Well, we won't go.
Yeah, I knew Ray.
I knew Ray as well.
Elizabeth Ray Thacker, right? And what she did in Australia, well, that's another story. Anyway, then Selwyn Lines was the registrar, right? Now, Selwyn, he had this thing, when he had to acknowledge, he nodded his head like, "Fine, yes, thank you," So it was ridiculous. It was John de Monte, who was bald, but he had two heavy kopu eyebrows, right? Which would raise him independently, He'd be sitting and suddenly his left eyebrow would shoot up towards his forehead. And then we had Jim Naylor, who had just come out of jail. He'd been in for a breaking and entering. He'd a serial burglar. He was an auditor. Barry Fairburn, lovely guy, Barry, fabulous guy. He's still around. He's an expert on nutrition. He was a teddy boy. I mean, the complete thing with the jacket, the hairdo, the lot,
Teddy boy?
A teddy boy.
What's a teddy boy?
Think about Guys and Dolls. Think about the Marlon Brando in that crowd. The jeans, the hairdo, the quiffed cravat.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Be one of them, right? And that's the sort of people we had there. We had the Amanda Moran, who was a daughter of Nadine de Normanville. She was a supervisor in the basement, where they did the upper and dock tea hours, where we did our. Well, the walls were covered in eggshell boxes, trying to dampen the sound.
Right.
And if you ever read my write-up, the story of the day the gas man cometh, do you remember that one?
No, I don't remember that story. I read a lot of everything you wrote before.
He came to read the meter, okay?
Oh, okay.
And he had to come down into the basement. And he got to the door, and the door opened the door and went in, and Amanda, he stood there in horror because there was someone screaming at an ashtray. And someone else dragging bodies back and forwards on TR7, right? And he's looking like, "What's this?" So she had to take him by the hand and lead him across the room to the meter where he could read it.
Right.
At which point, someone burst out a loud, "Stand up." At which point, his nerve broke and he fled across the room, knocking people out of the way. Getting out, and he ran upstairs and telling people they're all mad down there. They're mad. They're crazy down there,
Right, telling the ashtray to stand up in the chair.
Yeah.
Right.
So these are the sort of things that happened, but it was just taken in our stride, I mean.
Right. So
Neville,
then,
let me ask you, Neville, let's get back on what were you doing when you were 21 or when you were at St. Hill? Your mother was on the briefing course, but what were you doing? Did you end up on staff, or did you become an auditor, or what did you do?
Only after I did the briefing course. Originally, what happened was I was at Cheltenham, Technical College in Cheltenham, studying chemistry. And I playing rugby, and I took my knee out going around the post the wrong way. And so I was told that orderly will fix it for you. So I said, fine, you know. So I went up there, and I had a guy called John Cronin as an auditor. Now, the one thing about John Cronin, an absolute innocent, you know, I mean, he's been in Scientology all the way since then, but he was absolutely innocent. And he just sat and processed me. And I found I made some gains from it. I mean, the sort of thing was, I mean, my first week on the course, I got 49 ethics chits. Not bad for a 5-day week. Everything from being late, everything from being drunk and disorderly to being late for course, right? And back arguing. So that was me, right? Anyway, that was what it was like. I was a rough diamond, should we say? I wasn't polished by then, you know.
Right.
So
that came in the much later years.
Did you go on staff? I mean, what did you do? Were you an auditor? What were you doing?
Not then. No, I was just around the London org because I used to go to school and come in there. You see, but no, I ended up then deciding I would study, so I went on the academies. So I moved into a flat in Camden Town, owned by Henry Bukowski and Pamela Bukowski, and there were a bunch of Scientologists living there, and I stayed there. I did my up to level 2 theory so I could qualify for the briefing course. And then I had a job working in a dental technician where I was packing stuff up. And that's another story. And I ended up taking down to back to Cheltenham, and then we moved to East Grinstead. And we got into East Grinstead in late December 65, and it started the briefing course in January 66.
There's St. Hill with snow on the ground. Hill, yes. There's St. Hill with snow on the ground.
Yeah, it was a good time there.
Move your mouse again. There you go.
Clever, these Chinese. So so I just got on with it, and it was a vintage year. I mean, the people there were just incredible. I mean, every weekend we had a party down there. There was always a party somewhere. A lot of them were at the Budlongs, Virginia Budlong's place, which was the Ridge Hill Lodge on the Turners Hill Road. And the rule of the day was no 2D allowed between students and public or staff. So, of course, everyone was at it.
Because they're not supposed to, they were at it.
Everyone. It was the national sport. You know? And also, I was also a foundation ethics officer as well, which is handy, you know. Anyway, Felice Green.
You got into it as well.
Well, I'll touch on that. Felice Green was the daytime ethics officer, along with a guy called Haskell Cook.
Yes.
Haskell was ethics officer. One thing about Haskell, he could sit there and he could type at speech rate. And someone would come in and say, well, I understand you've been having an affair with so-and-so. And the guy would say, well, this is Mo Budlong saying, well, I wasn't ready. And Haskell just typed it and said, there's your ethics order. You got a 2-week suspension and a 2-week surveillance project. And
well, you know, when my mother showed up at St. Hill in 65, the end of 65, early 66, Haskell was her ethics officer to address her SP, her suppressive person declare from the Hazzy in Melbourne. And he ends up dating my mother and causing my mother and father to end up breaking up.
About par for the course.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to St. Hill, you know?
Right. Welcome to St. Hill.
Hey, Neville, do you recall when you first met Peter Gillham and Yvonne Gillham?
It was probably around early 66, I imagine, because I've been in that period of 65, autumn, I've been away from there, you see. So I imagine the first time I'd really effectively seen them was in January 66.
Well, that would have been my mother, because my father didn't arrive at St. Hill till November 66.
It was your mother I saw there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on course, the course I was on was actually in the pavilion. That's where level 0, 1 was there. And Peter Kalin was our supervisor. And You had 2 weeks to get through the theory and then 2 weeks to find a PC, member of the public, and process them. So I thought, okay, well, I found it a bit difficult getting there, and so I ran out of time. So he said, well, you got to get a crabbing. So I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. So he told him I had to do something else. So I invited him to go forth and multiply. Okay.
Okay.
He said, right, you're going to ethics.
Janis, you want to start on the C project now?
No, long before that, you know. So I went on to see Joan Thomas, who was the ethics worldwide in the manor.
Right.
And she issued an ethics order me, declaring me to be a rebellious individual.
Right, and you still are.
Well, I think I got an amnesty to them. But anyway, I was ordered to have power processing at my own expense.
Okay.
And I had a guy called Terry Milner, who was my auditor. Then Terry came over from LA. Interesting character. He'd actually been barefoot vagrant. And he wandered into the org and got into things and ended up on staff and becoming an auditor. Now, he was my auditor on power processing. And we did it in the cabin in Anne Gregg's house. So I had to walk from there back up to the hill, right?
Okay.
And in walking back, I just said, I made a few comments about observations, which turned out to be the correct end phenomena for the processing, you know?
Right. Okay.
He was, oh, great, you know? So I knew that it was working. And from then I was studying, and I got into getting some PCs and whatever. And I got through all that, and I got through the briefing course, and I got onto the clearing course. And then I joined the staff, and I became the solo course supervisor.
Okay.
And I had about 6 students. And I just went out and banged the drum, and I had 102 students in about 3 weeks.
Wow, that's very good.
So it just got them done. And I would sit there and go through things with them. And then I got taken off that. They wanted to put John Cox in there for some reason.
Is this around the time you got invited to the Sea Project?
That came after that.
Yeah.
But the leading up to that point was that there was a notice on the board in the entrance to the reception area at St. Hill. And on the board in October 86, it said, anyone with naval experience or seafaring experience to contact Joan Robertson or Joan Thomas. Oh, that's interesting. So I said to Joan, oh, what's all that about, Joan? Where did you see that? Oh, it's on the notice board. So she ran through and took it down. Don't tell anyone about it. Oh, interesting, you know. So after that, we noticed people disappearing. Staff were no longer there, you know, they were elsewhere. And I was called in and invited to was I interested in joining the OT committee? I said, I don't want to be on a committee. Well, would you like to be part of what we do? I said, tell me. They said, well, we have a thing called the C Project. I said, sounds good to me. So, but you can't tell anyone. I said, fine. So I went on, packed my bag, told my mother, where are you going? So I can't tell you. I got this look, you know, like, you know, you will tell me where you're going. I'm your mother. I said, I can't tell you because I'm going on a project. Where's that? You must ask Mary Sue. It's always a good cop out, that one, you know?
Right, right.
So anyway, I ended up at the back door of the manor. I had my suitcase inside the treasury hut there. Anyway, Roger Buckridge and Tox Sundergaard were standing around the back there. We're just chatting, you know, like, weather's nice, what are you planning, you know, looking at this, are you going anywhere this weekend? No, nothing particular, you know. So anyway, they dissipate, walk off, and anyway, Joan comes out and says, right, we're going in the car. The car says, where are we going? So I can't tell you. Okay. So he took me up to the train station. She got tickets, got to Victoria. Where are we going? I can't tell you. Then on the underground to King's Cross. Where are we going? I can't tell you. Got on the train, going to Hull. Can we go to Hull? Well, now you're on the train. Yes, I can tell you we're going to Hull. Hull was a word that should really had a different vowel in it rather than a U, you know. More like hell, you know. Anyway, we got there and we got into the cab and took me to the Victoria docks. And got out and we walked along the dockway and these ships along the dock. And he said, right, there you are. Where? Pointed down there. I looked down there. This grotty old trawler. And there's a gangway down to it. And the gangway says Hubbard Exploration Company on the side of the banner.
Right.
Which ship was that?
It was the Avon River.
Avon River.
Oh, you want me to show that?
Yes. Well,
Got
this
the
is
original
her.
photo of it? No,
This is
that's
her
a smart
prettied
version.
up.
That's a cleaned up version. I mean, it was that's a multiple upgrade, you know.
Yeah,
That's going from coach to first class. It really is.
Yeah, she was all black. And I remember hearing from Blake about just all the fish oil and the fish scales just caked on the deck and they had to scrape it up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. And it came with its own engineer, Cabby Runcie.
Yes, I remember
Scotchman.
Cabby.
Cabby was a lovely guy. He was an alcoholic. I mean, he
Right.
could not get up in the morning without a shot of rum and a can of beer.
Yep.
And he came with the ship.
Yep. I remember him.
And we were complete novices. I mean, in fact, Leon Steinberg and I were the aft lines people, you know, and we had to stand at the back, and the line had broken, so we had to make a new line up. So we got the wire, we wrapped it round and tied it in the best we could, and tied it tight, and we called it the Schultz knot. This is Leon, the Schultz knot. Anyway, this is hooked on, and we suddenly found this is the knot that was now holding us to the dock while they pivoted the boat. All right, this is like a spring line, all right. And we were watching this line that started to shake, and there's bits of dust flying out of it. And Leon and I we started to move back around the corner away to the other side of the boat in case this line broke, you know, and snapped. Because if a line breaks and it flicks, it'll kill you.
Yes.
I mean, Joan Thomas nearly died from that because she was on the up here on the forecastle, and there was a line from the forward spring line up that just snapped, and the end of course splays out, and it shot past her face. Now, if it hit her, it would have taken her face off.
Right.
It was just these are things, you know, just took in your stride. So we got this going, and then we got together finally to go. We had Frank McCall on board as the supercargo. God, what a mistake that was. And we had a non-Scientology captain, because we had to have an official captain to sail out, take us to Las Palmas, and going out of the dock, because the dock was a fake dock. It was corroded by the tides, and it had a lock in it, so you had to only go in and out when the tides were matched what was in the dock, and they could open the dock and take you in and out. So taking out, we bumped off this side of the dock and bumped off that side of the dock, and got out into the river, and of course we were sailing against the stream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Against the flow. Of course we're going up and down, you know, and Virginia, there was someone trying to cook some food, and of course we had no fiddles on the table, just ordinary table in the galley there, and this big jar of onions, get sliding back and forth across the table. So as you're eating your food, you're trying to fend it off with your arm, you know. And we had this engineer there with us, and he's looking at them, and he's looking at us, and Phoebe there is sitting there, and he's sitting there like, how would you like a nice couple of cold fried eggs? Well, have a nice greasy pork chop. At which point they were up there and running for the side, you know. So, and Hank was looking out the window going, look at the waves, they're going up and down, up and down. Phoebe saying, for God's sake, Hank, will you shut up?
Yeah, everyone was seasick.
Just about, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
So anyway, we ended up going down through Harwich, then across the Goodwin Sands. Well, I was on the helm that night. Now, the Goodwin Sands is a notorious place. There are many, many shipwrecks there, okay? And it's shallow, and you got the peaks of the ship sticking out of the water. So I'm board there, and this captain says, right, nothing to starboard. Means don't move anything to starboard. Stay anything to port, because we're sailing along there between wrecks. sunken parts of wrecks
Right.
at 3 o'clock in the morning.
And nobody was really trained for the
No, not
ship.
at all. Not
Right.
at all.
Right.
Anyway, we ended up getting round to Falmouth. But on the way, you see, being a British ship, every time you pass a Royal Navy vessel, you had to dip your ensign, right?
Right.
It was one of the things we were told to do. So what you do is you got close to exactly opposite the ship, you drop your ensign, all right? There's a dip, there's acknowledgement. That meant that someone on their ship had to race down the deck, go to dip their one in response. And we got to Falmouth. It was just after the big oil spillage. Not sure it was the Torrey Canyon or something like that. It was a big oil spillage all along the coast there, down the Cornwall area. And of course, in Falmouth Harbour, we managed to spill oil into the harbour. We were not popular. In fact, they had to come in with scoopers and things to get up the oil, and we were invited to leave now. So we got a few things on board, had to clear harbour. We went out into the Atlantic, and the instructions were to sail going west to reach a longitude which would take you, going due south, would take you to Las Palmas.
Right.
That was the instruction we had from Hubbard. Simple, except that this took us across the Bay of Biscay. You heard of this place?
Yeah, and you bobbed around like a cork in the water.
That's putting it mildly, all right? We had a lifeline running from the forecastle up to the where we were, and it was the only way you could survive yourself was actually have a lifeline. You threw it around it and gripped it, the two ends of it in your hand, because that's what kept you alive. And
Right,
you
so that was going across.
You got carried horizontally. This otherwise you'd have been overboard. But we got up to the bridge, and the force of the sea on the rudder was so great that it sent its power back through the hydraulic system, back up through to the helm, which then spun as a result of the power. I'm surprised that the whole hydraulic system didn't break, but it did. But then you have waves breaking over the bridge.
Right.
Now that's where the definition of overwhelm came from. If you look up in the dictionary what the word overwhelm is, it tells you it's incredible. In the wave, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's suddenly a wall of water is coming at you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
You crash down into it, and you think, well, you're not coming up, and slowly come up out of the other side, on again. 3 hours you had of that. Storm force 13, going across the Bay of Biscay.
Right.
And of course, the anchor was not dogged in properly when we set off. So as it's going along, this is going bang, bang, bang on the side of the boat. That was the ladies' quarter. Ladies were on that side. So
well, and then nobody would want to go up there because they'd get washed over trying to fix the anchor.
No, this is inside. We slept in our sleeping area, which is the forecastle. There's a canvas curtain across the middle, women on one side, men on the other. Apart from Jill and Joe Van Staden, who had a bunk that went crosswise. And they slept together on that.
So you're saying that you guys slept up here in the front of the boat and up here where the anchors were?
Yeah.
Yes.
On the outside.
Below deck, but I mean up here in the front. Wow, that had to be a rocky sleep.
It was. I slept there in a hammock when I went on the second mission into time on the Avon.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Now, the one person who had a good idea was Amos Jessup, right? Amos rigged a hammock in the lower hold, right? The hold, right? So while the ship was doing that, he was horizontal. He was fine, right? Except when he tried to get up, because whichever way you go, the floor was like that or like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got through it, and it was like got down, and it was as calm as a mill pond going past Cape Trafalgar, and then across North Africa. It was calm after that, and we got down into Las Palmas. But before we got into Las Palmas, we had to stop up because there was a harbor right across our path. And I'm getting used to this. The harbor went right across us, and so we had to stop up and get a harbor pilot to bring us in. And then we taken in, and we anchored in the harbor, and that's when Hubbard came on board.
As soon as you arrived in Las Palmas?
I'm sorry?
As soon as you arrived in Las Palmas?
Oh, yeah, he came on board
Yeah.
to have a look. And he was hopping and bumping around the place, and he's wearing his denim jeans and denim jacket and his cap, you know. Yes, he immediately sacked the engineer and not Cabby, but the other engineer with him, and sacked the captain. And then we were out there for a few days, and then we, after a while, we got winched into the dock, where we moved up. We moved up behind a large Spanish vessel, which is a water carrying vessel, which had been there all the time. So we did our work behind that. But I should say on the to go back to the beginning of it, when before leaving St. Hill and seeing Toc and Roger there, I was saying, "Hi, goodbye, see you guys." They didn't know where I was going, and about 1 o'clock in the morning, heavy rainstorm, right? And there's a banging on the forecastle door, okay? And I got up and opened it. There was Roger and Toc standing there. They'd also come up. None of us had known they were coming to this thing, you know? You look at the photo of the boat there, okay? You see the bow had been slightly truncated.
Yes.
Been flattened off. That's because it was over a certain length. And if we got it within a certain length, we didn't have to qualify for certain regulations. That's why that was circumcised a bit, you know?
Oh, okay.
And I know that on that journey down, I had to, people get sick. Now, right at the aft there, right at that aft cabin, at the aft was an aft head, all right? Right on the starboard aft, right? Over the propeller, over the fan, right? Now, in there we had boxes of fruit, and I had to process Wally Burgess. Wally was sick, right? So we had boxes of oranges and little fruit flies flying around the place, and a board on it, and a meter on it, and Wally's sitting on one box on one side, I'm sitting on the other side. I'm now processing the guy, right? Doing remedy A, remedy B, and 3 S&Ds, you know? 3 techniques. So
just for the people watching this, those are different Scientology processes.
Those were listing techniques designed to help a person stabilize themselves.
Right.
That covers a multitude of sins, you know. So
let me ask you, Neville. I want to ask you, when you finally hit Las Palmas after that wild ride, did you go, "I'm not going on that ship again"?
No, we loved it.
What were your feelings?
We loved it.
You loved it. You loved the whole thing, huh?
It was the start of the great game. That's all you got involved with that, you know. It was the great game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the things we did in Las Palmas was amazing. I mean, we developed abilities there that Hubbard freaked out about, because these were things he couldn't do. And I mean, it was this. They asked me to go and to join the Enchanter crew at the time, the Diana crew. And I looked at that and said, "Well, that's Ray Thacker's in," but I said, "I'm not going over there."
That's right. I forgot Ray had been on the Enchanter.
This is the Enchanter, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I said, "I'm not going on there." At the same time, I think she said to Ron, "He's not coming on this boat," you know. We had a mutual hatred of each other, you know. And I know remember David Mayo telling me a story that when they were in one of the Algerian ports, one of the instructions was you had to put chlorine in the water tank to purify it. Well, it made the water foul, you know.
Yeah.
So what they did was when Ray wasn't looking, they'd throw that away and put lime juice instead. It looked the same color as the bleach. They'd pour this in, the lime juice, into the tank. Yeah.
That was what David Mayo and Merrill Mayo were on the
Oh,
the Enchanter.
Yeah.
You know, looking at these photographs, it looks like it'd be more pleasant on the Enchanter than the Avon River. Is that true or no?
Yes, it could be, but there again, you're moving at a slowest pace. It's you've got a very tight, small group of people there, you know, and your spacing was very limited to what you can do. But it was a nice boat. It was a good boat, right? In fact, I think
it only had 3 cabins.
I'm sorry?
Didn't it only have 3 cabins?
Yeah, the main cabin was Hubbard's cabin, right?
Right.
Then there was a port and a starboard bunking situation.
Right. Yeah.
So that's all you had there.
How many crew would be on the Enchanter then?
4 to 6.
I think.
Okay, so a handful, not that many.
About 6 or 8. That was it. You know, no more than that.
And did you mainly use sails or was it motoring?
I don't know.
It was both. It was both.
Yeah.
Was it more fun when it was sails than
they ran the sails
motoring?
a lot of time actually.
Janice?
What was that?
Was sailing more pleasant? Like, was that a fun activity when you had sails up?
Yeah, that was fine and it was smooth, but it was faster with the motor going.
Okay.
Yeah, but there was one time where the Commodore required Captain Bill maneuver that ship only with the sails. He was not allowed to use the motors. And I think it was just to get him more experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing about the Enchanter, or the Diana she became, she was in Jolly's boatyard, which was adjacent to where we were, up a slip where he was there being worked on. And one of the things Hubbard wanted to do, he wanted all the ballast taken out. And he wanted to replace with lead ingots. Okay? Had these specially made, like little cubic lead ingots made of a specific shape and size. And there were a lot of them. And Robin Lindsell and I had the gig. Robin was in charge of the motorboat, and we had to go to the dock to pick these up and load them onto this gig and take them out to the Diana, which was floating in the harbour there. Now, thankfully, the water was like a mill pond because we only had about 3 inches of freeboard. Okay. With the weight of the gig, which is so far in the water, there's only about 3 inches left between water coming in and the edge.
Right.
Yeah. So we couldn't move around. We desperate swat and going fut out there, and then we had to start passing these up to the crew to put into there, you know. And someone dropped one in the water. Well, there was an expression of upset, you know, that could have been heard in North Africa, you know.
Mm-hmm. and that was Hubbard?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
He could be volcanic, right?
I know.
So anyway, we got them, they loaded into the base, and the reason apparently he wanted these was that because he was looking to go to one of the islands, somewhere like Sicily, I think, and there was a museum there where they had these similar ingots there, which were actually pieces of gold coated in lead, and the idea was to swap them over. All right.
Okay.
You get you move from the center, you get out towards the rim here now. Okay. You're getting into Neverland now, right?
Yes.
He had all this thing that I know on Mission into Time, the trip you did, he would talk about go past this promontory there. You see that outcrop there? Well, there's a spaceship built in there, hidden in there, you know. And I remember this wasn't never on the tape. Came back, right? But I remember Sandy. Was it Sandy Johnson?
Sandra Johnson.
She was a supercargo under Hannah.
Okay.
Hannah was the captain.
Yes.
Anyway, she came back and she said, mission into time, mission into BS, more like it, you know. See, the misunderstanding about Hubbard. Hubbard's problem was he was always broke. everything he ever did was to get money because he was broke. On the
what you want to tell the story on how he purchased St. Hill?
Yes. Well, you see, he living in London. Okay, he had an apartment there. I remember I actually had his driving license one time, actually, which I sold to an American collector. He'd been told about St. Hill by Red Sharp. Now, Red Sharp was a very wealthy man, all right? Reg owned a company called Telesurance, the first of the real telephone sales companies. You know, it was like selling insurance over the phone. A company called Telesurance. He had a house. He bought a house in St. Hill Green, and he heard about St. Hill Manor coming up for sale. And he, and he told Hubbard about it, and the price is £15,000. So he loaned the money to Hubbard to pay for buy the Ranor, on the understanding that Hubbard would pay him back. Well, Hubbard moved into St. Hill Manor. It became the big I am, you know. In fact, we had a party down there after he bought it. We came down from London. We actually hired a London double-decker bus, bring the staff down, and we had a big party there. I remember playing croquet on the lawn there with him and Mary Sue. Tennis courts was in use. We had feast in the Winter Garden, and Hubbard was just hail fellow Mel. You know, it was, you know, mine host. And it was a great day out there. And Diane, she was about 7 at the time. I was about 11, and she latched onto me. Everywhere I went, she ran like a puppy, ran after me. You know, where am I going? She was there. You know. We always had this friendship there. And as things turned up with the rest of the development there, then he started getting students coming in. He opened an HGC, Hubbard's Guidance Center for Processing, under John McMaster ran it. And the idea was to make money. They bring cash in, because they weren't making money out of students coming in and paying for courses. I mean, in those days, in 1966, the briefing course cost £275.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's nothing compared to what. Well, the briefing course doesn't exist today.
No, but no, it was good. In fact, I remember when they started the work on building the castle. They got planning permission on the grounds that there'd been a site of a previous castle there, where every man's home was a castle. Some archaic ruling that they fiddled around with, no?
Right, every man can build a castle on his land.
And Bill Robertson was the estate manager. And Bill was popular. Everyone liked Bill, all right? Anyway, Hubbard declared him an SP. And Bill was in what was now with the canteen there, okay? So the guys are coming in and saying, "Hi, Bill, how are you? Oh, you can't talk to him. I'm an SP." Well, BS, you're a mate. What's up, Of course we'll talk to you. And there was so much of a backlash against Hubbard that he actually cancelled it.
Good.
He cancelled it. Just the sheer weight of people saying, no, he's our mate. He's good.
Right.
He's one of us. This is one of the things that I could never understand about Scientology, because there are no enemies. You know that, don't you? There are no enemies. The enemies that exist are those that you create yourself in your own mind.
Exactly.
Create a game.
Exactly.
All right.
Yep, they're all created.
I mean, if you can be there as a person for someone, and sit to them and just be there and allow them to be, they'll go into session on you. They start telling, strangers will talk to you and say, "Oh God, just be there for them,
Right.
So I just touch on that side thing.
Right.
But anyway,
so now let's go back to the Avon River.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So now you were on the Avon, and then how did you end up at St. Hill with the message for us kids?
Well, Hubbard had decided that, of course, we knew all about his ramblings about OT3. We knew back in Hull what was going on, something going on. But he said everyone had to sign a 1 billion-year contract. I said, I'm not doing that. Proceed away from me, you know. I'm not doing it.
Right.
So sorry, Terry. Terry was the New Zealand guy was the electrician on board. Another guy who said
Miller.
Pardon?
Miller.
No,
Is it Terry Miller?
Maybe he was a New Zealander, middle-aged New Zealander. Nice guy. He was an electrician, and Hubbard declared that anyone who didn't sign it was a degraded being. I said, okay, so I'm a degraded being. Now what? You know. Anyway, James Fuller was not doing well, shall we say? And Hubbard said, take him back to St. Hill. So I had the job of escorting him from Las Palmas across to Tenerife. And then we got on a liner, the Begonia, which had come from Curacao up and on the way to Southampton. We got a berth on there.
Oh, okay.
And I got him back, and it was funny because the captain said we're coming into harbour now. She said there will be a full customs inspection and everyone coming on board, leaving the ship. And all of a sudden, you can see all these things falling overboard. You know, knives, illicit things, knuckle dusters, guns, everything being slung over the side. You know, illicit excess cigarettes, everything. It was just hilarious. Like a hail of dandruff, you know.
Right. Right.
Anyway, we got back, and I got him back to St. Hill, and that's where I saw your mum.
Right. No, we
saw you.
You saw us kids to give us her message.
Your mum had told me to give you the message, tell you how she was doing, what's happening with her, how she was doing fine, you know.
Right.
We couldn't say anything more about where we were.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, people were happy to see us, you know. I then, to go back on the Avon River when it was in Las Palmas, we were all auditing on the bridge up at the deck. Bill Howie was doing the clearing course because he was the only one who wasn't clear. All the rest were doing OT1 and OT2 on the deck, right? Sitting beside each other, chanting away, you know, doing the thing. And I'm sitting there, and Hubbard's walking around behind us, and he taps me on the shoulder and says, you finished. Okay. Because the phenomena you had to get was called a floating tone arm.
Right.
Whichever way you touched the tone arm, it fell to the other side.
Right.
If you have it on needle on three, you touch it, needle would fall down. You have to touch it back, fall the other way. Touch it, just totally disconnected.
Yeah.
So I got back to St. Hill, and John McMasters did the OT2 check because Anton James was he was the clear checker. He was the qualsec worldwide. He did all the clear checks. Now he was on the ship, so he couldn't do it. So John did it, and it was a 3-hour session just to check it out, to go through everything, make sure it was fine. The examiner had to be satisfied, you had to be satisfied, and the meter had to be satisfied.
Right.
That you'd achieve the end result.
Right.
And at the end of that, you were then announced complete. I was the third person through. First person actually was Mary Sue. She finished it on the ship. She did hers there. But that's what we did. After that, then I'd listened for the Class 7 course for the Sea Org.
Okay, and you did that at St. Hill.
Yeah, no one had done this. They didn't do Class 7 for the Sea Org before, but I was the first one. I was the only one.
Right.
So I did it there, and I got through, and I did well on the course. I achieved, yes, Michael.
Yeah, Mark.
No, it's just are we getting to a point where we wrap this up here and go? You know, we can always have him back for another.
Yeah, well, we are going to have him back for another one because we're going to cover the liability cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the important thing about was that I'd done well, and they wouldn't let me go from St. Hill because they had no one else who could get the completions I was. So they sent Otto Roos over to tell them that I'm coming back with him.
Right.
And so that's how I ended up back on the ship there.
Oh,
In
okay.
Valencia. And that's another story.
Right. We'll pick that up next time.
Good.
Yeah. Now,
Okay,
I do
great.
have, Mark, just one quick one, and that is we have a photo there of my mother and Haskell.
Okay.
Because they joined the Sea Org together, and they sailed with Neville down to Las Palmas, and Haskell was working in the dry dock with the ship, while my mother, I believe, was at the villa as a steward for Hubbard. But Haskell fell into the dry dock.
Yeah.
Were you there for that, Neville?
I think he was standing on a platform, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
And it gave way under him, I think. And he went down landed on the concrete slope.
Right.
I think he was fairly badly shaken up. But he was fine. He came back to himself. He was one of us, So we made sure he was fine.
Right.
We looked after ourselves.
Right. But I heard that he had back on neck issues from it, and he ended up blowing from shortly after that incident happened and went back to Mexico.
It was after I'd left.
Oh, okay.
Because I came back. That was after I'd left, yes.
Now, my mom was dating Haskell at the time when she was the steward out at the Villa Estrella.
Yeah.
And I've heard from both Hannah and a few other people that Hubbard was hitting on her at that time, which was...
Virginia Downsbury will tell you about it.
Is Virginia still alive?
I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
I know exactly what happened out there. You see, he hit on your mother, okay, and she would have nothing to do with it. And he made life hell for her after that. He really did. And he needed a bed warmer. Okay. So I think Peggy Bankston was got the job.
Yeah, that's what Hannah had said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he was but Hubbard's infidelities is another matter for another time.
Right. Okay. All right, then let's close this up. And
well, I wanted to say before we go, a lot of these stories are covered, right, Janis, in your first book in detail, correct?
Yes. Yes, a lot of it is.
And photographs and all that. And if you all are interested in her book, Commodore's Messenger, Book 1 and 2, they're both available on Amazon.com. And we have links on the description or on our channel page if you'd like to order it. And also Book 1 is available in the audiobook version as well. Okay. And we'll have Neville back, of course. And before we go too, we want to say, please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We really appreciate the support, and gets the stories out, these great stories, historical stories, and stories about what's going on in Scientology. If you want to know what's going on, press that subscribe button, click that like button, and also the notification, and we will notify you when something's coming due. And then lastly, questions, ask in the comment section. If you've got any questions for Neville, you can just write them in the comment section, and Janis and I will relay them to Neville, or we'll take them up the next time that we speak with them. Do you have anything else you wanted to say, Neville or Janis?
Well, it was, this is really the first time I've spoken about things in, I don't know, 40, 50 years.
Yeah. And I appreciate it, Neville. It's good to see you.
There's an awful lot more that can be said.
Yes, but I think the last time I saw Neville was when I was in England in 2006. We visited together, and then when my daughter was over there for her 18th birthday, you and Malcolm took her out drinking, right?
It was Derek Colley, actually, myself. Took her to St. James's, to a posh restaurant there for her 18th birthday.
Yeah. All right,
you know,
then.
walk on the wild side, you know.
All right. Well,
thanks everybody. We'll see you
Thank
on our
you.
next episode. I'm going to play the end card
Keep
here.
well.
Neville, yeah.